Hi, everyone. As I promised, I was sharing the results of the survey on our emic view of marriage. So if you remember, way back in chapter 2 or week 2, we studied the word emic, which means the insider view of a culture. So all week long, we've been studying the anthropological view of marriage, and which would be closer to the etic view. So now we're going to look at the insider view, what your attitudes about marriage are. So most anthropologists see that marriage serves certain functions in society. So let's look at how you see that. Now, in our survey, I asked you to discuss your plans for relationship and marriage. And overwhelmingly, this is a group that is very positive about long-term relationships and marriage in general. Most of you either are married or plan to marry. And if you do not plan to marry, another segment of you said that you plan to have long-term monogamous relationships. So we, as a group in our sample, are really positive about the relationship aspect of marriage. And there was a small segment, the green wedge, were a group of people that did not want either long-term relationships or marriage. So let's take a look at who our group is. Our sample contained only 18 of you responded in the survey, but of those 18, 17 of you are female. So we have one male in the group. So that's how our group looks. Now, I asked you why marriage is important, and I deliberately left out love because I knew if I listed that would wipe out all the other possible answers. Leaving love out of the equation, most of you feel that the primary function of marriage is to create a stable home to raise your children. And that's that blue bar on the far left. You can see about 60% of you selected that. And then, I'm sorry, not 60%, but 6 of you. And then almost as many, about 5 people said that marriage was important for religious or social reasons. So that was the lion's share of the answers, and a few of you, looks like one each, answered. One person felt it was important to secure sexual access, and another felt marriage wasn't important. So I gave you the option of filling in the blank and writing in your own choice, and I want to show you what those answers were. They're kind of along the lines of love. So one person said, it tells each other what you mean to each other. Another person said, it's not necessarily important, but it is something I want to have in my life. I want to be able to spend my life and make long memories. It's not about money or personal needs. So that's in contrast with the Turkana that we studied last week, where it was about needs, but labor needs and how to share the labor. Not so much about relationship like it is in our culture. And here's probably the number one reason is companionship and love. The fourth option that someone gave was a celebration of commitment to your partner and letting them know that you're 100% invested in the relationship. And again, we see a trend that the importance is relationship. Again, contrast that with the Turkana. And finally, the last person said that marriage was important for all of the reasons that I gave you, but also another thing that this person wanted to add was that it was meaningful to let someone else know that you're choosing to spend the rest of your life. And that person said, love is a crazy thing. I think that's a movie title, isn't it? Crazy Stupid Love? Wasn't that a movie title? Okay, let's go on with the survey. The next section of the survey dealt with expectations. So this is what you expectations you have of marriage. So for all the females, this is where we differentiated by how you identify in terms of gender. So the females in our class said that in terms of expectations, most of you expected sexual monogamy. Most of you, although it's closer to a 50-50 mark, most of you felt that you should have rights to your spouse's income. Very few of you felt entitled to control your spouse's behavior, with one exception, that's sexual monogamy. Of course, that's an expectation of behavior too. And then lastly, I asked if you would take your spouse's name, and the majority of women in the class said yes, they would. I suspect that has a lot to do with historical trends, because that has been a trend that women, after having their father's name, take their husband's name. But again, that is changing, and we did have, it looks like one said that they do not plan to take their spouse's name. So let's take a look at how the males in the class answered. Again, sexual monogamy is an important expectation for the males in our sample. But in a different light, the males in the class do not feel entitled to the rights to their spouse's income. So let's take a look back at the women in the class and see how they answered. So you see, women had a different feeling. They wanted rights to their spouse's income. And if I were to guess, I would suspect that that has a lot to do with our history, where women did not have equal access to the resources in our society. So economics is a bigger concern. Then as far as rights to the spouses, to control spouses' behavior, very much like the women, men in the class did not feel entitled to do that. And finally, as you might predict, the males in the class chose not to take their spouse's name. Again, a historical trend. So let's look at the next question. These are more the function, what you see as the ideal functions of marriage. So typically, anthropologists look at marriage as dividing labor, such as raising children or other things around the house, and decision-making. Those are some of the functions of marriage. So when I asked you this question, I was looking to see what you thought was important in terms of marriage functions. So I asked you, who would earn the majority of the money? And most of you feel that it should be an even split, with just a few of you feeling that your spouse would, or that you yourself would. Again, that's a changing pattern. Have entered the workforce in increasing numbers over the last 50 years. We see more and more of an even split in earning power. As far as who's going to do the domestic work, again, you wanted to split that equitably, with a few of you saying that you felt that you would do the majority of that. Now, I don't know if that was how you would choose that to be, or if you see that as just the reality where women overwhelmingly in our society still do the majority of the domestic work around a house. But of course, that's changing. Who makes the important decisions? All of you wanted to share that with your spouse. And then who would control the household budget? That was a smattering of a lot of choices, but mostly you saw that as something you shared. So in general, it's a very egalitarian group. You're going to share everything. And how did the males feel? The males are even more egalitarian. They're going to share everything, including the domestic work and the important decisions. So that is the end of our survey. I did want to share with you, no, it doesn't really apply to this group because all of you were willing to share the domestic work, except for a few of you who said that you would do it yourself. But usually there's a few people who say they want their spouse to do the domestic work. So I always like to share a sociological study where they attempted to correlate or match how much intimacy there is in a marriage based on how the housework is divided. And what these sociologists found was that when the housework is evenly divided, there tends to be a greater amount of intimacy in the marriage. So you all are on the right track. And I'm going to end this with a short comment to do with that last sociological study, and I'll leave it to you to apply it as you will. Anyway, that's the results of our study.